welcome to another episode of Words with Friends. This time I have a treat for you, like a real treat. It's very, very, very rare for me to get to speak to somebody who not only is like brilliant at what they do, but a brilliant human in that too. And not just somebody I respect, but somebody I kind of fanboy over a little in terms of their abilities. So on that introduction, welcome to the show, Mr. Marcus Sheridan.
Oh, Phil, what a joy it is, man. It's like, it is so great to be able to have healthy conversation during crazy times. It is so needed. And so I'm glad we have this chance to chat.
Yeah, it is good to be here. Marcus is a fascinating speaker. I would argue possibly the best in the business. And if you haven't seen his work, go check it out online. You'll see a masterclass in performance. But more than that, you have a beautiful mind when it comes to the world of sales and marketing. Perhaps one of his most famous pieces of work is a book called They Ask, You Answer. We might dive into some of that as we get into the show. But Marcus, the premise of Words with Friends is that we talk about a word. You do not know what the word is. I'm going to give you the word. I picked it very much on purpose. And the word that we're going to talk about today is the word integrity. That's the word I picked for you.
Okay.
So why do you think I might have picked that word for you?
Well, my guess is why you might have picked it for me is, well, hopefully that is something that I would put off. I mean, so it's like how would I define integrity would be doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And I would like to think that when people see me, they say he at least tries to do the right thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And also probably because I tried to be very thoughtful in my approach in terms of seeing the world from both sides and not being irrational. I think it's easy to do, is to be a pundit, but I think it's much harder, yet ultimately much more effective, to be able to look at something for what it is and to be able to see it as a whole and present it to the world on both sides and not be that pundit. So that's my guess. I don't know why you chose the word, but if you ask me why, so that's my guess.
Well, I give my reason behind it is from afar and also up close is you are the personification of that word is where it shows up in my lens, right? That's what I see in terms of it, both in how you perform for your clients, how you perform for your family, how you perform for the industry as a whole. And that definition that you provided of it is it kind of the work you do in the shadows, the work you do when nobody's watching, the way you communicate in that background is testimony to what I've been able to witness for you. Now, we are in some very interesting times, right? This is not evergreen content. I'm not producing this show with the purpose of it being listened to in 2023 and potentially still being relevant. I'm talking about where we're at right now. I'm locked up in my cabin. You are at your home base. We were both chatting before getting on as to like, when might we fly again? When might we be on a plane again? When people are in their own home office environment right now, what are maybe some of the things that they may be thinking that would be perhaps lacking integrity, maybe actions they could be taking that wouldn't be congruent perhaps with your definition?
I think, I think there's a few things that are easy. So during times of incredible stress, we can start to do things that would lead us to being very, very selfish. It's almost like that person you watch when you're traveling, because you travel so much, you're in the airport, flight suddenly gets canceled, and you see that person that's yelling at the helper at the desk, and they literally think they are the only person on earth that moment, and their reason for needing to be where they're going is so incredibly more important than anybody else's in the world in that moment. It's fascinating to me. When I started traveling, I made myself a major commitment, and I was very serious about this commitment. I said, no matter what happens when I travel, I'm going to make sure I enjoy the process, and I'm never going to be that guy, that person that is the center of the universe and so angry and so mad. And so I've just been able to roll with things so very much. Right now, I think it's critical that we recognize that we're not the center of the universe, that our situation is unique and it is difficult in its own way. But I think there's a lot of other people that are going through certainly much worse at scale right now, right? And so we have to be really, really careful about right now. So as a boss, I've got about 140-ish employees between us, 4 companies. So I'm thinking about them a lot. I'm thinking about what happens to them psychologically, emotionally, physically, if I have to let them go. How should I let them go? What does that look like? Is it a furlough? Is it a non-furlough? Who do I keep? Who do I not keep? How can I afford to pay people but keep the business sustainable? Over the course of time. None of these are necessarily, easy things, but this is what I'm thinking about. I'm also thinking about, you talk about integrity. It's like, I had a situation the other day. It's like, so when the problem that a lot of businesses have right now is they have to cut staff because they have less revenue, but they still have extremely high demand. And so less staff now has to do what all those other people were doing before, which puts a strain on them to potentially have to work more hours. The problem is they're having to work more hours, but yet many of them are home and their kids are home, or they've got family at home, and they now are requiring incredible amounts of energy from them as well. So if I'm being selfish or if I'm being very myopic, I am going to sit there and think, geez, work needs to be your priority right now, when in reality, they have to take care of themselves. They have to take care of their kids. There's got to be some type of goalposts there that they don't go past. Just the other day, I had to tell one of my employees, listen, you've got to stop working after 5 o'clock. I know that your brain works in such a way that you just can't imagine not completing all your tasks. Right now, you have to accept that you're not going to finish all your tasks with work, and you've got to be okay with that. But the opposite, of course, is just do what it takes. Sometimes right now, I don't think everybody can just do what it takes when they've got a kid at home or more than one, or incredible responsibilities that are just holding them down to prevent them from doing what they normally might do.
So how do you see those consequences playing out, right? There's a lot of messages in the world right now, like do whatever it takes, the whole hustle and grind story. It's like, this is the time to be able to shine. Here's your moment to be able to thrive, whatever it might be from an entrepreneurial point of view. And you've just shared something that maybe is in conflict to that thought. What is the potential consequences of people thinking that they need to run at everything and squeeze everything in full on?
This is sticky because I do believe that this is a time of opportunity.
Okay,
and
I agree.
That is the choice that I have made, because I think the alternative choice sucks, right? The alternative just is a place of lay down, pound fist on ground, and say, when is this going to be over? I don't think it's going to be over as soon as any of us would necessarily like. So I believe that we have to be of the mindset of, I must live in the solution. I do believe that we want to try to be as productive as possible. I do believe also that we have to be careful about how we manage what we might consider rest versus escapism. And escapism won't necessarily help us long term. And let me give an example of this. And what I'm about to say is, for me, it's not for anybody that's listening to this. This is what I personally chose. It doesn't mean it's right for anybody that's hearing this right now. I said to myself, as soon as this all started happening, that I wasn't going to increase the amount of TV that I was watching. It seems like, every time on Facebook, I'm seeing somebody ask for recommendations of new shows. My personal rule is this. It was this before the quarantine, and I demand this of myself right now. I do not watch TV unless I'm on an exercise piece of equipment. That's just that's my general rule. So if I get on a treadmill for an hour a day, I am allowed, this is my standard, right? Again, it's not right or wrong, it's just my standard. I'm allowed to watch TV during that time. So the only way I'm going to watch more Netflix right now is if I'm on that treadmill way more time than I normally would be. And I recognize that for my mental health and physical health and emotional health, that I need the chemicals from the exercise every day. It's a standard that I've got to have. I think it's that important. I think it's that imperative. At the same time, I do think it's okay to take appropriate breaks right now. What does that look like? So one of the things that looks like is I had an employee come to me a few days ago, and this person said, I'm recognizing that I'm falling short as a parent right now. I'm falling short as an employee right now. I'm falling short physically right now. And I just can't seem to get my brain together. I think I need to take 2 days off from work. Okay. Now I appreciate the fact that that person came to me. I love this person. I want this person to be happy and succeed. I'm going to give that person those 2 days without flinching because they need that right now. But my hope is that that person doesn't get lost in escapism, that they get lost in, okay, now I can be the best parent that I can be right now. If that's what they
It's
were
about
lacking.
getting some rest and taking a breath, not just burying your head in the sand and
Exactly. There
ignoring
is a
what reality
difference.
is. Okay.
Great point. And I think that's what we have to distinguish as we go through this is, will this activity, whatever it is, will it ultimately lead me to a better place when I'm done? And I think that's a good habit for life. I don't think just because we're in this incredibly difficult period that we throw out all the best practices that we know to be true. But we do have to take care of ourselves, and that manifests itself differently for different people. And I realize I'm not like everybody else.
Marcus, when I think about your career as a thought leader and what you've gone on to be able to do, there was like this catalytic moment in 2008 where you were in an adverse position in the past, right, with the business, and your actions and reactions at that moment in time not only went on to be able to turn the business around, but also created this blueprint, this footprint, and then this platform for you to then go on and build your business that you currently have today off the actions that you did back in that point in time.
Yes.
I hear it regularly taught about in universities and colleges across the United States of America, and shared around the world as now almost the go-to content marketing strategy is what you write about in They Ask You Answer.
Yeah.
But more than that, though, right? It's talked about as a sales story.
Yep.
What is very rarely talked about, though, is a leadership story.
Mm.
And I think when I'm looking at that period of time right now and the decisions that you went through to be able to then act upon the steps that you went through to be able to go against advice that you were being given at the time,
Yes.
and also to be able to figure this out for yourself, was an interesting set of leadership decisions. What are you reflecting back on in that period of time then? And how are you utilizing some of those lessons to be able to help you navigate your thinking today? And then how are you sharing some of that with others?
It is interesting, like sales of the book have increased a lot in the last month because that book is well known for it was a business framework that came out of the last recession, right? And so it actually has been quite comforting for a lot of for me to see so many people reading it now saying, this is giving me hope and comfort right now because this is where I find myself. So when and let me say too that, because so many people have asked in conjunction with what you just said, Phil, Marcus, how do you compare 2008 to what's happening now in 2020? I'll be very frank in saying that I think 2020 is dramatically more difficult than 2008. That being said, there are certain principles that I think can absolutely be shared in terms of how we deal with and how we react to this particular situation. Because to your point, I was told by 3 like literal consultants to close my business, file bankruptcy, whole 9, right? Now, that just really didn't make sense to me because again, what's the alternative? It's like, so I felt like, okay, what do I have to lose by just really throwing myself at thinking about my business differently?
Mm-hmm.
In my case, talking about swimming pools in a way that nobody in the world has ever talked about them. So blatantly freaking honest that we become that voice of trust. answer the questions that nobody has ever been willing to answer on their website. Like, how much does a fiberglass pool or an in-ground pool cost? And what are the problems with the fiberglass pool? All these things that nobody wanted to talk about. I'm like, we have nothing to lose. We're going to be the best teachers in the world, period. We're going to become the Wikipedia of the space, period. That's what we're going to do. And that's what we did. And so it's fascinating to me that, I look back, and it wasn't overnight. I said to myself, I'm going to answer one question a day, every single day on my website. And either I'm going to save my business or I'm going to go out, but at least I won't have any regrets. And I won't live in this place of just waiting for it to happen.
Right.
I'm going to do something about it. And I think that is the key. It's like, we can't wait for the economy to improve right now. We can't wait for the stimulus check to come in. We can't wait for that phone to ring. We can't wait for, is the client going to let me go or not? We have to call the client. We have to get in front of the thing, right? We have to, in this context, produce maybe the content that we haven't been producing.
Right.
We have to, like what I did in 2008, one thing that I did, which is a very intimate side to 2008 for me, was I went to my wife and I said, my impression is I need to start producing content. In order to do that, I can't go to bed with you at the same time every night. And I had done that for years. We went to bed at the same time. But I didn't want to take away from any time I had while the kids were awake, because as it was, I wasn't home very much. And so I said, I want to do this work at night when everybody's asleep. But it meant we didn't go to bed at the same time. And so for 2 years, right around 10 to 11 o'clock at night, I would start typing at the kitchen table for 2 straight years. My wife to this day says there was something so soothing about falling asleep, hearing the keys slapping back and forth at the kitchen table. The sound of that to her was really, it just meant something. And of course, now we can look back on it and say, my gosh, it changed our life, because I tell everybody, 2008, other than my wife and kids, was the greatest blessing of my life, because it forced me to do things that otherwise I probably wouldn't have done. And that's the silver lining to all of this. And I think if we have a choice, even though this is a crappy period of time in the world, it's also a time of opportunity, of healthy opportunity, right? It's a time of tremendous learning opportunity, of a time of potential personal development. And those are the things that I'm going to lean into. And I think some beauty is going to come out of, come from behind these clouds that we're all in right now.
I believe that wholeheartedly too. And 2 questions I want to just dive into based on what you've just said there is ultimately what you had through all of this was a level of transparency. Not necessarily like pure truth, but transparency that allowed other people to be able to see behind the curtain or to get more of the answers that they need. Whilst you were doing that work, Marcus, through creating transparency for your customer base, and then equally that permission-based conversation that you had with your wife, did you carry that same transparency into your team and into your staff?
Man, I think there's so much of that, because companies, we love to throw around the world we throw the word transparency and transparent around all the time in businesses today. It's kind of similar to culture, right? We love to throw that word around. But if you get to the core of it, most companies are not transparent at all, if you really get to the bottom line, especially in terms of their willingness to communicate with the marketplace, what the marketplace would like to know. If you ask anybody, would you prefer an organization to openly talk about cost and price on their website? What drives it up? What keeps it down? Really just teach me about the marketplace. Would you prefer them to do that? Well, of course I would prefer them. Yeah. And do you do that as a company? Well, no, but you don't understand, Marcus. You see, that's the conversation that we have. Transparency doesn't care about the way business has always been done. Transparency doesn't care about our personal feelings and opinions. It just cares about the marketplace and what they would like to know. And ultimately, that thing that would help them. And so transparency also manifests itself in different ways. Let me give you an example of this. And again, this is not for everybody. I don't have a problem getting emotional in front of my audience. I don't have a problem talking about my family. I don't have a problem shedding a tear. That's because that's what I'm feeling. And I want the audience to feel what I'm feeling. And I give myself permission to manifest that. I don't need to put on something that I'm not in that moment. Now, is that going to turn off certain people? Absolutely. It's going to turn certain people off. But I'm also transparent enough in saying, and I've told this to audiences many times, but I'm willing to let you go. I'm willing to let the ones that are not aligned with this me giving you my full self, I'm willing to let that percentage of the audience go, because it's only 1 or 2% anyway, right? I'm there for the 99. That's what I'm there for. And I know you can say that as well, because not everybody appreciates your style, but it's the 99% that have made you one of the most successful speakers in the world, communicators, teachers, right? It's because of the fact that it does resonate with so many people. To me, that's transparency. There's so much of it. I don't think we can talk about that enough and manifest it enough, frankly.
Yeah, I'm hoping that just gets some people spinning their own wheels on how they're showing up transparent or not in their life. And Marcus, the second question I wanted to ask you on what you were just talking about there is you mentioned something about how it was soothing to your wife to hear the tapping of the keys.
Yeah. Mm.
Now, there are a number of people right now who are furloughed at home,
Yep.
or that you've had to take a decision as a leader to let a number of people go or to have them on reduced hours. And my belief is, and I don't know whether I'm true on this, there are a number of people that are feeling pretty useless, pretty lost, unsure how to be able to apply themselves. You say that your wife felt the comfort in the fact that you were doing something useful during that period of time, and at least you were having a go. And I can really picture that. I can picture that being true. And it just made me think about all the potential horror scenarios right now where people are sat at home not knowing what to do, what they can do, what their options are. And your scenario of that being soothing could actually be the complete opposite in another household where two people are just going hell for each other because they're just not sure what to be able to do to be able to navigate this. So just think from a leader's point of view, and let's see if we can be useful. What are some things that they could perhaps advise people to be working on in the background while they're not working on their day job? What are some of the other things that could be getting done right now that would be valuable, but maybe would have never got done otherwise? Maybe they sit outside of that person's natural skill set that allows somebody to be able to step up and deliver value on the things that you know are valuable to businesses in these times.
I think that's a great question. I think that many of us have no idea just how much our skills could translate to other industries. And I was looking at a list the other day of the industries that are exploding because of COVID.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of industries that are exploding because of COVID. Right. So let's say that, I'm just going to give you a simple example. So let's say that let's say that you are in you're a marketer, right? And your business has let you go because marketing is oftentimes one of the first departments that gets let go during times like this. Have you reached out to some of these food delivery companies? Have you reached out to some of these healthcare companies, right? Any type of like come to you companies, because they all need marketing, because guess what? Most of them haven't done it well because they were all very new, novel. So you've had like literally hundreds of thousands of companies that they're being forced to dramatically speed up their development and be ready for the marketplace, because now the marketplace shot ahead of them, right? And so before we were starting to get excited about food delivery. Now we demand it. I have to have food delivery right now. Like everybody, and they can't keep up with it. There's no way. And so if we look at it like that, we can say, okay, there is opportunity in the marketplace. I need to go find it. Where can my skills translate? That's one. Number two, what skills could I be developing right now that I've always known inherently that I could do, but I just haven't said I had the time, or I haven't made the time. I think there's a bunch of those. I really, really do, Phil. And And there's going to be people come out of this right now that come out of this quarantine and they got, like they got a degree, a college degree of education.
Yeah.
Out
If
of this
not that,
time.
they're going to learn how to bake sourdough bread or something, right?
Or they're going to learn how to bake sourdough bread, and maybe they turn that into a business. But we're all learning something right now. We might be learning about Tiger King or whatever that's called on Netflix. I don't even know.
But we are choosing what we're learning, right? That's what you're saying.
We're choosing what we are learning, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't imagine. Just having this discussion with my wife the other day. I was like, man, just the opportunities right now to develop our skills is so high and so unique. And, I've developed all these, I've been forced to develop a whole series of new, like pieces of talk points that I can now use in the future. I was talking about virtual selling before, but I have gone like way, like just all in on it and have this whole new presentation on it. And it all happened because this forced it upon me. And I said, okay, I've got to learn how to teach this because my clients are freaking out right now. I'm not going to wait for them to call me. I'm going to offer free webinars to them on how to do virtual selling. And I've been just giving free webinars because I'm trying to galvanize the relationships I have with businesses right now. Some will pay, some won't pay, but I'm not going to stand on the sidelines, man. That's that much I know to be true, and I'm going to learn a lot during this time.
Well, there's also integrity in that, though, that you're figuring this out. So you haven't worked out your pricing for your new offering at this stage because you haven't done it enough. I just created something with a client yesterday in a call as just something we're going to deliver. And they're like, what are you going to charge for that? I'm like, I got no idea.
Yeah. So actually that is good. Too many people say, I've got to have the plan right now. It's like, what am I going to charge? Let's figure it out. Right. Nobody understands anything. Like everything is volatile right now.
And stuff shouldn't necessarily be on a website and pre-purposed, right? In terms of here's my offer and here's its price. That's not what you've ever said anyway.
Because we're all figuring it out. We're all figuring it out. And so the thing about it is, I've literally told multiple clients over the last month, tell me what you feel you can honestly afford right now. Some have been zero. And some I didn't even ask. A lot of them I didn't ask because a lot of them I said, I don't want you to worry about this right now. I'm going to do this for free right now. And then others I knew were in a different position. And so they made an offer to me. Now, I don't generally ever do that in the past, but that's where we are today, and that's okay. We don't have to have a set plan that's perfect. Anybody that says they do is being either naive or they're lying to you. Right? Because we're all figuring this out right now. And it goes back to, what Michael Port says all the time is embrace the messy. A lot of messy right now. So you just got to embrace it. And say, okay, we're going to figure this out. All right, no big deal. We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. But we've got to be in that motion of figuring it out. And that's where we are.
Integrity with my show and making sure I do the things that I always do when we're on this show. And knowing we only have a few moments left of your time, I have 3 questions I want to ask of you. One is very much on the topic we're talking about today. Is I think possibly the most important integrity-based question that we should all look to be able to know the answer to right now is 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, 10 years, 20 years on from now, what do you want to say about what you did during this time period to the people that you care about in the moments that are happening in the future? So I got to ask that question of you. What do you want said about what Marcus Sheridan did during the quarantine, lockdown, 2020 pandemic?
I actually created a vision on this early. Similar to that travel thing, like when I started traveling, I made a commitment to myself. The commitment that I made when all this started to happen was twofold. I said, my vision is that people come to me after this is said and done, and they said, Marcus, I knew if I came to you during this time, watched one of your videos, read a piece, whatever, that A, I would feel hope, and B, you would keep it real with me.
Love that.
And that's where that's the state that I'm trying to present from. And I think that goes back to the word of the day, frankly, is because I think that's, if we're trying to live a life of integrity, ideally, hopefully, that's what it looks like.
Marcus, words are my thing. The final 2 questions for you are all about words. And penultimate one is, what is your favorite word and why?
My favorite word is a Spanish word, and the word is animo. And I lived in Chile for a couple years, and so I love the Spanish language. And when you have learn different languages, you learn that words mean different things in different languages. So some words are better in other languages. Animo is it's almost like the perfect combination of zeal for life and enthusiasm and love of learning. So you combine all those things, and you have an animo, which is a zeal and an energy for life. And that's what I think is critical that we all have.
What a beautiful word. I didn't know that one before. I've learned a great deal just in that one piece alone. So final question. What is a word that you've been using a lot recently that didn't find itself in your vocabulary a great deal before? Something that these times has unleashed in you. And perhaps you may not even like the fact that you do use this word so often. I need a new word that's shown up in Marcus's vocabulary as a result of the time that we're in.
So two words that have been coming up a lot, and I think they're received in different ways, but one of them is together, because of that feeling of I'm alone, and we all feel some sense of being alone right now. So I find myself referencing that a lot, reminding people and myself of that a lot. And the other one is opportunity, which is a sensitive word right now because some people don't want to hear it. And I get that. But I choose to lean into that word, and I find it coming out of my mouth often, even though maybe it makes some people roll their eyes when they hear it. But regardless, I believe it's true, and I think it's our responsibility to find that silver lining. That's probably another word too. Silver
lining. It's funny, right? You're going to be catching more of them now. Just to like, how many times did I say that today?
Yeah, that's right.
Marcus Sheridan, you are a gentleman in every sense of the word. Thank you so much for joining us on Words with Friends. I always have fun every time I speak with you. So thank you for sharing some of your magic with some of the others that are listening in on here right now. How can people find out more about you if they want to understand more about you and your work?
Yeah, you can find me at marcussheridan.com. You can just email me directly too, marcus@marcussheridan.com. I'm on Twitter @thesaleslion, Lion. I know it's a funny name, @thesaleslion, but that's probably the easiest places to find me, Phil. Oh, on LinkedIn. That's my place. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you're listening to this, because that's where I play all day.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Well, I will see you in real life sometime soon.
Thank you, Phil.